this is WHLC. I'm your host again, Johnny Jones, with the Weekly Scholar. We have two guests today. Please introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Kalima Mackenzie Sims.
And I'm Jesse Jones.
Our usual co-host right now. Please tell us a little bit about yourselves again.
Okay, cool. I am a upper sophomore, sort of kind of. That's okay. I am a social work major, and I'm from Rainbow Alliance, and I'm the vice president of that club. I'm also in Dream Team and Glee Club, and yeah, so I'm happy to be here today.
Sounds pretty good. Jesse, give a background again.
Well, I'm a political science major. I like politics. I minored in African American studies, and I'm a senior, getting ready to graduate.
All right, sounds good. I guess we'll just dive right into it. One of our topics today is bullying, and the other side of bullying. Would you like to discuss that first?
Sure. Pretty much bullying is a topic that a lot of people brush under the rug because they think it's not that big of a deal. You know, you should grow tougher skin if you want to get along in the world. But in reality, some kids or even some adults take what people say to heart, and it stays in their head and they think they're worthless, and it carries throughout their lives, and sometimes people even harm themselves or even commit suicide because of bullying, and it's a really huge problem, especially in our country today. So that's why we're trying to stop it. Oh, little plug, speaking of bullying, we have an event tonight at 5 o'clock, room 113. It's called Speak Out Against Bullying. It's an open mic, so come down and speak your mind about the topic.
This is at the Student Life Building?
In the Student Life Building.
Okay, sounds great. Anything else you'd like to add, Jesse?
Bullying is something that has to be addressed, you know. Like, nobody wants to live in a world where people get bullied all the time.
Well, I like to go a little bit further. As I was thinking about topics last night, I kind of wrote some things down. And one of the things I wrote down was the other side of bullying that you don't really see, or the idea of what is a bully. Me and Jesse have both taken philosophy, so we understand that definitions don't have to end. They can just keep on going. So when you look at every movie, like teenage movie, high school movie, over the past 40 years, it's always, the bullies are always the same, am I not right? It's always a jock, or an athletic guy, or the cool guy, or something like that. And it's the ones who are picked on are usually the nerds, or, like, what do you call it, the ones who are have different sexualities, or
the overweight kids.
Yeah, and, like, I'm wondering the effects of how that has had on people in America, and I said America, because seeing that for 40 years, wouldn't that really make you feel some type of way when you see a football player or a basketball player walking down the street?
Yeah, totally. Like, people, it's the stereotype that jocks are automatically going to be the mean kids, or the bullies, or the popular girls are the mean kids, which isn't always the case. And sometimes, even if you're not the bully, people expect you to be the bully so much that you even become that just because you want to be what people expect you to be. But that's also a problem. So it ends up like the bully is actually the one getting pushed around by their peers because they're expected to be mean to a certain group of kids that's different or whatever, and that's really bad. So that's totally true. We don't even visit the other side of bullying, like looking at the bullies and what pressure they're under, and even if they're really bullies at heart, if they're just putting on an act to get along in school or get along with their friends, quote unquote friends.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that because actually, people actually look at me because of my size and stuff, and like I remember back in elementary and middle school sometimes where I was expected to be the bully, but then because I thought it was worthless, and I still think it is to this day. Never was, never will be.
Yeah, it really isn't worth it. But I'm just kind of wondering it does really affect people. Because when you see someone Jesse's size, or when you see somebody who is bigger than you, or even when you see somebody who's a nerd, all these different connotations come out about the person who it may not be true at all. I mean, I knew a football player who the guy was ripped. We went to different colleges, but the guy was like 6'6", gigantic, muscles like just bulging everywhere. That guy was the most sensitive guy I know, and he was homosexual. He was the best player on the team.
Yep.
I mean, we were good friends because we loved cooking together, and just like we could talk about art and other things like that. And I was like, "Aren't you? How come you don't do this with your other friends?" And he's like, "Well, they expect me to be a drunk and not do well in school and all that other thing, so I put on this act so they don't do anything about it." And I'm just like, you should just be yourself. And I kind of wonder, when will people start saying, "Can I just be myself?" instead of labeling people into groups of how they should be.
Probably never, because people always gonna have their expectations of you, whether you're a big nice guy or a small nice guy, But on the other hand, you also have to ask the question, how much are you going to take? Because a victim, I don't know, I guess maybe my way of defining a victim is a person that constantly lets stuff happen. Without saying, okay, look, I'm not, this is enough, I'm not going to take this anymore.
Oh yeah, and I totally agree. But sometimes it's easier to be who people expect you to be than to be yourself, because you're afraid that if you're yourself, you're gonna end up becoming the victim. So you don't want to become the victim. You want to be the one on top. You want to be the one that has the upper hand. So you just play into any, like, it's come to the point where people don't even know who they are anymore, because they're pretending to be whoever people want them to be. For me, like, I don't know. At first it was easy for me to be. I was a bully because I am bigger than I am. Okay, when I was in elementary school, a long time ago, I was a bully because I was always taller than everybody. I was always taller than everybody. I'm like almost 6 feet tall now. So, but then I was like a foot and a half taller than everybody else, and everybody expected me to be the bully, and I wasn't a mean person, but everybody always expected me to, like, Kalima, you should totally, they said something about you, you're just gonna take that, you're too big to just stand there and not do anything about it. So I would just be like, fine, you want me to do it, I'll just do it. But that was when I was in elementary school, and now it's just like, what's the point? It's not, what is the point? It's easier for me to be myself, which is not a mean person. I'm a nice person. I'm not gonna be too nice, but but I know it's just not worth being the bully anymore, because when you see that person's face after you tease them, or you push them in the mud, or you throw their book in the mud like I did, that's a story I'll get to probably later. But like, you see their face and you're like, damn, I made them feel like that. That does not make me feel better at all. It just, I don't even, what's the point? So in some cases it's easier to be yourself, so people just give that a try, because there's too much bullying going on. And
then it translates too when the person gets older, because let's say that person grew up watching television and saw that, okay, jocks or certain people are supposed to be bullies, and this is what's supposed to happen. So let's say they become teachers, and they get an athlete who knows what he's doing and wants to be wants to go to college and do well for himself. But since you have all those connotations of how people are supposed to be boxed in, it does affect somebody. What do you call it? You're affecting somebody without even knowing that you're doing so. Like they say, if you go into a classroom and I was the principal and I was to say, okay, watch out for these 10 students. These 10 students are really good students. They're going to work hard for you. Even if that's not true. Those could have been they could have got all F's the last term. If I tell a high school teacher that, he'll make sure they get the A's that they need to get, because he'll push them, and that generally makes students work hard. So what are you guys' thoughts on that?
I don't know. First of all, I think that it can be taken one to two ways. One, is that it can be a put down, or the other, it can be motivation. You know, sometimes when people are put down so much, what happens is that they end up birthing an internal fire, which then grows and grows and grows until it comes out.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, there's definitely agreement. I'd like to then, for our last part of the discussion with bullying, I'd like to then get into something more that people don't discuss either, is bullying doesn't stop.
Nope.
It does not stop. Like, a lot of people associate it with, like, kids or teenagers, but adults bully each other all the time.
Yep.
I remember when I was younger, I was like, okay, as I get older, people will stop bullying. People will grow up. Wrong.
Wrong, definitely. There are bullies, adult bullies too.
Yeah, companies bully each other all the time. If you go into like a restaurant or businesses, like, people will just be mean, or if they can get away with it, definitely. And how come that doesn't get like promoted or like seen by people as much as just associating it with kids or teenagers?
Because as an adult, I'm sorry to cut you off, but as an adult, people expect you to, had to have a reaction to it. Like, it's more socially acceptable when you have kids, because you can still deal with the problem while they're young. But when you reach adulthood, there's certain things that people expect for you not to let go.
Yeah, and like, it's actually really, I don't know, it's really, people expect kids to be the bullies and to be bullied, but when it gets to adulthood, people expect you to be like, you're old enough to just handle it, you know what to do. People think that adults don't have feelings. I mean, they probably, like, in the workplace, if your boss is bullying you, you're still gonna feel some type of way about it. You're not just gonna be like, oh, well, I'm an adult, I can deal with this. No. I mean, it's still bullying, whether you're an adult or not.
I mean, if you're going to work every day and your boss and coworkers are kind of bullying you, like, do you know how much damage that must put on you, like, every day, knowing that you have to go to work to that type of environment, or just that, or even that if you have to deal with people who work at a certain office, they're just like, wow. Like, it's amazing to me that this still, like, nobody ever kind of says, you know what, I don't need to be a bully. Like, it's not something you need to do. Like, why do you want to keep on, especially if your life isn't going great, why would you want other people to suffer? Like, that seems to be the root of bullying. Just like, you want other people to suffer.
Because it makes people feel better when they see other people being put down. It makes them feel better. I don't know why. It's a self-esteem issue that they need to deal with, but that's just how it goes sometimes. People need to think about that. Can't just brush it under the rug like it's nothing.
On the other hand, it goes back to that saying that goes, misery loves company.
That's true. Like, the bullies are probably going through something and they're like, well, I don't want to be the only one that's feeling some type of way, so I'm going to make somebody else feel as bad as I feel and just hide it and act like I'm the big bad wolf or whatever, when inside I feel like crap.
Yeah, it makes you, when you think about it that way, it kind of makes you a little reluctant to, when you see other people and they're just, you look at other people. You look at other people and they're like working in a certain environment and you know that they're miserable, but you're looking at them and you're saying, okay, well, this is probably going to be my life or something like that, instead of saying, how can I not get into that position? Or like, if you've been bullied even as an adult, how do people stop and say, how do I not do that? Like, even in the worst of circumstances, like we've talked about people who are homeless and yet they still smile and don't cause trouble.
Yep.
One of the ways you address that is, go home, look in the mirror, ask yourself, yo, is this what I really want to do? Like, there's some people who I know that, like, could be going through hell, and they're sitting there and they deal with it, and it's not like, it's not like people don't have their problems, because everybody does, but it doesn't mean that you go and you make somebody else's problems worse.
Any last thoughts for you before we break?
No, I totally agree with what he said.
Sounds great. All right, we're now in the topic of bullying, and we're going to take a quick commercial break. Thank you very much for watching the Weekly Scholar. We'll be right back. We're back. WHLC Weekly Scholar. Folks, if you ever want to email us with any questions or concerns, or if you want to be on the show, contact us at weeklyscholar@yahoo.com. Exactly. Sorry, had a memory lapse there.
It's all right, man.
Yeah. All right, now it's just Jesse Jones and us. It's the Jones Brothers. We might have some company later, but until then, it's just me and you. How do you feel about life right now, Jesse?
Life is one of the most challenging things, but it is the most beautiful thing.
Tell me about it more.
Well, graduating next year is a good thing. You get to plan it, you get to live it, and every day that you bleed, every day that you're breathing, it's just another blessing.
Sounds good. So, how do you feel socially with life?
Life, for me,
how's your social life? I'm sorry.
I have a good social life, Like, for me, it's just as important as any other aspect of life, like, health, things like health, health knowledge, the seeking of wholeness,
I'd like to get into a discussion about things that not too many people get into. So, how do you feel when you're walking down the street and all of a sudden you're a black man? So you see two Caucasians walking, one male. The woman just kind of, she just clinches next to the male she's with, because and it's obvious that she's doing it because she's just saw you. How do you feel about that?
For me, it doesn't bother me, but but that doesn't mean I'm not aware of the social stigmas that are attached to anything that comes with it. Hold on, let me clear my mind for 1 second. It doesn't bother me, but I'm very much socially aware of of what's going on around me, and and the connotations that come with anything you're dealing with. Like, I know I'm not gonna always be accepted positively, but that's fine. I got other things to focus on, and besides, negativity only brings about drought to energy.
One of my friends visited me in the Bronx, New York, She's Caucasian, and I have Caucasians living in my neighborhood. It's fine, but they're, what do you call it? So she gets worried a little bit because she sees guys gangstered out and stuff like that. Like they're sagging a little bit, and she starts like she does the same thing, but she's doing it with me, and it's just weird because I know what's going on, and I give her a piece of advice. I say to her, don't do that. And she's like, why? I was like, because you need to be, there needs to be something about you that's you can't provoke people, because I've seen it where people can be provoked like that. Like that's how you get into that's how you get into an altercation with somebody, because they know what's happening, you know what's happening, but until somebody finally says what's happening, then it's a big problem. And some people will not take it kindly. And I said, the best thing you can do is just relax and go about your business. Do not be a victim. Because even if the guy wasn't even thinking about it, or what, the woman wasn't even thinking about it, now you're showing that you're afraid. So it makes you a victim. It makes you're clarifying yourself as a victim.
Yeah, that actually causes people to become a victim of their own mind. Mm-hmm. And because of things like that happening, people ought to be, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be alert, but people should, at least be conscious of the messages that you're not verbally but physically sending out. Mm-hmm. Which then is an internal expression of what you're thinking about.
Yeah, definitely. Like you could be walking, all of a sudden walking through a hallway, and all of a sudden like three people are walking, and all of a sudden like you can see them going to the other side of the room, like the other side of the hallway, and it's just like, wow.
The thing is that it's a sad state of affairs, but sometimes people judge on them on a very small, minor things that they see happen, mm-hmm. which then again you have to blame on the media, because they basically exploit the negative connotations of people.
Sounds good.
And that doesn't matter what background you come from.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Very true. Yeah, so the social is something that isn't really, like, besides taking a sociology class, you don't really see it talked about too much. Like, you see pop culture and a bunch of other things are what's appropriate and what they think is inappropriate. But you never really hear the ideas. Folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I'm sorry we're having technical difficulties. Sorry about that, folks. Our technical difficulties are taken care of, and to our surprise, we have a surprise guest. Please tell us your name, major, and all that other stuff. Tell us your name, major, and anything else you'd like to say.
Sure. My name is Pieter Nilay, also known as Peter Nilay, and I am the president of the Indente Students Association here at Lehman College. We just had an event actually in the Student Life building to promote awareness of the issue of human trafficking here in the United States and around the world. I'm a history major here at Lehman with a minor in middle school, high school education.
Tell us about Indente, the group.
Sure. The Indente Students Association is actually an international association of young people from around the world between the ages of 17 and 30 who want to promote the values in the greatest and most noblest of values in our society. Basically, love. Love, it is the foundation of hope. Is the foundation of generosity. The reason why people forgive. All of these things are attractive to many of us. But our club and its members dedicate themselves to living out these values. So there's a dedication there that's involved in. We just invite everyone here at Lehman to also join, because this is what we want to do. In order to influence our civilization, our society, we have to be, in a way, radicals for love.
Sounds pretty good. So I understand it that the event was about sex trafficking in the United States.
That's correct. Sex trafficking and also just human trafficking in general. Human trafficking can include labor trafficking. Unfortunately, women and men are trafficked here into the United States for labor.
What type of labor?
By labor, I mean that there are people who come here and are promised maybe that they can come into the United States illegally, and what happens is that they're promised a job and all of that. But what happens is that they have to pay back this person who brought them over, and they're forced into kind of this servitude. They're forced into becoming more or less slaves, and this is something that a lot of people don't know about here in our country, and it happens around the world. And people are trafficked in and out, and a lot of people need to know about what's taking place, and this is why we had this event today at Lehman in the Student Life building.
What did students take away from it?
A lot of the students actually they enjoyed our event. There was a lot of discussion taking place after the talk, which was given by Carlos Lindau, a former Lehman alumni. He graduated with a master's degree in social justice and global development from St. John's University, and he was actually studying in Rome for the past 2 years. He actually came this year to the United States back, and his thesis was on human trafficking, and so we invited him to come, and the students here, they really got a lot from it. They realized that trafficking isn't just of females, and it's not something that women let's say consent to. It's a lot of the times it's something that's forced upon them, unfortunately.
What countries are usually affected by it?
A lot of poor countries, countries that have they're less developed, countries, especially from the former Soviet Union. Once the Soviet Union collapsed, a lot of those countries, such as the Moldova, the Ukraine, and even in the Middle East, this happens. And in South America, I know we had someone who from the community services that they offer services here at the college come in and tell us that there are people even here at the college that have been trafficked, that are suffering from this, and it's something that once all the students heard this is incredible. But we need to be aware that these things do take place, and in order for us to do so, we have to be active. We have to worry about these issues, because it might not affect us, but we're more than ourselves. No, we're so linked. The world is becoming more and more smaller as globalization continues. So once the students heard this, they really felt that they wanted to do something about it. So we gave them opportunity to join our club. And we have local meetings here in the World Youth Parliament, which is an international association of young people, like I said. And so we have them here in the Bronx and in New York City in general.
Jesse, why do you think this doesn't get talked about in the news?
I think it's an excellent topic to talk about, because people need to wake up.
Well,
flat out.
Why doesn't it get talked about, though?
Because, say it again?
Why doesn't it get talked about?
Because it's not the most popular thing. People want to know about the popular stuff and not about what's the real deal.
True.
And half of the time, what happens is that even in the media, they glamorize this materialistic lifestyle, and they almost basically ignore what's really going on. And people normally don't find out stuff like this until they reach college. And half of the time, after they learn about it, it's already too late.
Yeah. By the time they graduate, they're so tired with their jobs and what they're going through to the point where they just leave it. They leave it until one day, like, they know somebody who's it happened to or something like that. But this is a lot of heavy stuff here. Just what are your reactions? Like, what do you think should be done about this? Anyone, just take the floor.
Well, first of all, you have to heighten awareness. Secondly, you have to walk in love, because love is the only thing that's gonna basically sustain and help people, to really see what's going on and to get past, things like this. I gotta have this. I gotta have that. You don't have to have everything.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Jesse's saying, that this is something that continues to be a problem. A lot of people, they're not seeing the human dignity of the person. The person has a dignity that is intrinsic. In other words, it cannot be measured by money. It can't be measured by all of these material items. That we have to respect each other and love, definitely. Like Jesse said, this is something that's the foundation. And a lot of the problem with human trafficking is that there are men out there, let's say specifically for sex trafficking, that desire this. There are men that want to use women for self-gratification, that want to use them as objects. And as long as that desire is there and it's not being directed, this is what is going to happen. There are going to be men who want to degrade women in such a way, and that there are going to be pimps out there and traffickers that are going to supply these men with women. So it begins with ourselves. Like I said, we have to promote this dignity of the human person, which is above everything else, and that's basically what our club is about.
And it's not just men, though. Like it's not just women. I've heard that men are forced to do stuff like that too, or young boys and young women, young girls, like that. That's just. Folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I'm sorry about that. More technical difficulties. Is everything okay?
Yes.
All right. Yes, finally. No more technical difficulties, please, for the rest of the show. But yeah, I've heard certain countries where it's not just women. It's young boys being sex trafficked, the young women, like everyone. Like if there's a desire, there's some pimp doing it. But why aren't our leaders in the United States of America and abroad saying anything about this?
Because they're worried about the image, and on top of that, this goes all the way back to the days of genocide, like where people used to get hunted, and killed, just for sex.
In certain countries.
Exactly my point.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you ever saw the movie Hotel Rwanda?
Yes.
So then you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very true that as long as the demand is there, this is what's going to happen. Like you said, there are young boys and young girls that are also victims, unfortunately, of sex trafficking, and this needs to definitely stop. And leaders around the world, what do they need to do? They need to continue promoting First Lady Hillary Clinton is very active in this fight against human trafficking, and there she has a website, I think, where she's addressing these issues in practical ways of kind of moving in and trying to do something about it.
Yeah, I've read a lot of articles on not just sex trafficking, but just like the industry of what goes on, and like in Africa is really bad because a young African boy who doesn't have anything, doesn't have a family, doesn't have any medicine or anything like that, will sometimes they'll result to things like that. They'll say they're so down to the point where they'll sell themselves to older men or to people like that. And it's just really sad to read about, and like not a lot of people are willing to read about it or look into it more. Like some of them will even, like they'll be drinking at 9 years old. They won't, maybe alcohol, but they'll drink shoe polish to get over the things that they've had to do to get some food. And no one ever looks into this anymore. Or yeah, I don't know, if you could do anything to change this in your life, like what do you think the regular person can do? What do you think the regular person can do to change this?
The regular person, I think you and I, Lehman students, everyone around the world can just first of all make ourselves more aware that and not be so blind to all these issues around the world. And once we know that, there's naturally this desire to want to do something about it, and we have to nurture that desire and actually work towards doing something about it. And I think what we can do is that we can begin by just being more conscious of the other person, the person who's next to us in class, the people around us, the people, our close family members, our friends, and just making sure that everything's okay with them. And even like when it comes to issues around the world, we should be more active, write letters, send emails, do whatever it takes to just make people more aware of this. And at the same time, like you were saying about that young boy, the young boys like in Africa that resort to just almost basically selling themselves, and these kinds of things. This shouldn't, in the year 2011, this shouldn't be a problem. I mean, we have the resources and to reach out to these young people, and they need to be doing something positive. And I think that's where education comes through. And when young people are educated, they're able to make these right choices. But like you said, he has nothing with him, so. Like for example, that a young boy, and like the one that you mentioned, he doesn't have any of that support. He doesn't have a family, his friends, and those are the people we need to reach out to first. I mean, above all, because we don't want to see this to continue around in our world.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, Jesse.
And it shouldn't continue because like you have to ask the question. How can we live in, and arguably the most blessed country and still have this problem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, any last thoughts before we take another break from this topic?
People got to stop being their own worst enemy, because that's the first step. Getting out of your own way is the first step to evolution, to manifesting what needs to be done to get to the level where we can all be a blessing to somebody else.
Exactly, and like it all goes back to love. I mean, when you want the good of another person above the good of yourself, that's what I think love is. Like sometimes we might get caught up in that selfishness because our society, let's be real, sometimes is a little bit individualistic, and what we need to do is that we need to break free of that, saying that I'm not really the most important person right now in this situation. Maybe I gotta reach out to this other person. This other person is in need. Maybe sometimes when we have a problem or two, think about this other friend of mine that's going through something else. Like go out and reach to him. Sometimes even doing so helps ourselves maybe get through those difficulties. And like those little things, they really make a difference in our daily lives. It's something practical that we can do.
Yeah. My last thoughts on this topic is that the little things make a big difference. I mean, that kid could have a completely different life if there was a missionary that could help him out nearby that wasn't like like walking distance for him is like an entire an entire like state for us. So I mean, like, the little things can help. Sending money that way, or just like volunteering, or making people more aware that these things happen, so that the people who do have the means to help, like, they get the help there. Okay, well, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We thank our guests for joining us to talk about this topic. You're welcome anytime to come back and tell us about Idente or anything you'd like to talk about.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here on the show. And for those of you who are interested in joining our club, we're on Facebook. If you search Idente, IDENTE, Students Association - Lehman College, you'll see our Facebook group page there. And we welcome everybody to join and join us in this effort, in this movement towards a new civilization founded on love.
All right. Founded on love, folks. All right, we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. What were we talking about before, Jesse?
Yes.
We were talking about the social, how it doesn't really, nobody really talks about it, really.
Part of the reason is that I honestly believe that sometimes people don't talk about it because they know what the truth actually is, and they don't want to relay that message to the public.
Even though they know what the truth is. I don't know, for someone like me, I don't see the difference in, like, what do you call it? I don't know, maybe I'm just stubborn. Like, if I know the truth, then I just know it. I don't necessarily think I should have to say it. but why do people then act like they know the truth, but they approach it like they don't? I don't know.
I guess the perfect example to use to answer that question would be a rapper. You know, like what you see on BET.
Yeah.
They know that not all of them live this materialistic lifestyle, but that's what attracts views. That's what gets people, interested. So it's like putting on the front.
Yep.
But that front is really a facade. That as soon as the cameras turn off, they go back to being the person that they were before. You understand?
Yeah, that sounds good. Any point of view that you would like to approach with this topic?
Personally, I like the bullying one that we had going earlier.
Oh my God! What, do you want to talk about that again?
No, not really, but.
Yeah, that was a good topic, folks. I mean, we really got into it a lot. What was different than, like, because a lot of these things happen all the time, conferences on bullying, but was there a difference?
Yeah, there is, because I actually can think of times where people could, turn their life around, because, sometimes when you get people when they're young, it's not, you can turn it around before it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You can always turn your life around, folks. Even if you're 99 years old, if you got a few weeks left, like, hey, just do it if you can. I mean.
But it all starts with love. That's the thing. Love doesn't allow for victimization. Love motivates, not deteriorates.
Sounds good. We're gonna move to the topic of relationships right now. This is not something We're going to try to make this as scholarly as possible, folks. It's not going to be gossip, but just the idea of relationships right now with people our age and 10 to 15 years from now, where do you hope to be relationship-wise?
Married with twin boys and a successful career and building companies around the world, like, you know, but first off getting my master's in law.
So why?
Well, you weren't made to be alone. That's why you have a family.
So you really want a family?
Hey, of course. Like, you know, we already have one. I mean, without the family, we wouldn't be here.
Are you so sure about this with, like, the economy being unknown and all that other stuff?
All that other stuff is subject to change. You know, maybe, you know, in 15 years, we might be out of the $15 trillion debt we have.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. Wow. What would we have to do to get rid of that debt? I don't even want to think about it or have that discussion because that's too much.
Well, the first thing would have to be forgiveness.
No, that's not good into that topic because it's just, wow.
No, I mean, it actually, like, it ties in. Just hear me out. First of all, like, if I have a debt that's larger than I can pay out, wouldn't it be easier to forget for the other person to forgive me of my debt and wipe it completely clean?
Yeah. You can never pay.
No, I mean, like, literally just say, you know what, we forgive your debt.
Yeah.
Set them free, cut them loose, you know. Sometimes that's how you get things rolling in the right direction.
I kind of look at things, I'm the opposite of Jesse, folks. I'm kind of, I don't want, maybe I'll get married, but kids is just like, right now I strongly not, I'm just like, no, I don't want kids. Like, I've been poor for too long. Like, if I actually, I want it for myself. Like, I wouldn't, like, I want my kid to be a house in Puerto Rico. That's my baby.
Hey, you know what? It's all good. You know, people define things differently.
But it makes me wonder, are we all living the same life? Are we all trying to live the same life? Because I'm in college and I just hear everybody. They're saying things like, oh, I want a good job and I want a white picket fence and a house and good just a bunch of things. And I wonder, is that really for everyone? Like, does every American citizen need a college degree, a house, and all that stuff? Or should there not be, like, the media wants you to do that, of course, because that's how they make money. But should there not be people who probably just stay in cities and, like, raise their families there, or who don't live in America forever? Maybe they live somewhere abroad and, like, what do you call it? They stay there and they love it. Like, where's the diversity in just people and what they want to do with their lives?
Well, that question, that's like a yes and no answer to that question, because yes, you know, people want their own things, you know, but no, it doesn't mean that everything that people want is for them. You know, like, but then again, you know, some people might just want an apartment in Manhattan. Others, you know, why pay rent when I can own? I mean, right now, you know, I think right now is a key opportunity to just, you know, to go, you know, own a few properties. I mean, if you have the means to do it, then, you know, why not? But if you want it and you don't have the means, then you got to put, then somewhere along the way, like, you know, you have to put a strategy together before you go out to acquire what you want.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just means that, you know, a lot more work has to be put in.
Right now, my biggest fear in life is this. Like, I woke up one night and I was just in. I was just sweating, like, oh no, I don't want that, because I was dreaming, and it was like I was overweight, I worked a job that I didn't like, but I made good money, but I didn't like the job. And I had tons of health problems. I had a wife that I can't remember why I married her. And, like, we're just in... But we're in a marriage because we have kids together. And, like, financially, we're obligated to each other. And I got a mortgage I can't pay off. But I'm trying. And not only that, but if my kids are anything like me, they're going to be smart and just very, very... They're going to want to... What do you call it? They're going to want to go to, like, the best schools. So I'm going to have to, like, pay a bunch of... Like, just every check... I gotta pay Johnny Jr.'s tuition. And I wake up and I'm just screaming a little bit like, no.
Yeah, but you're gonna be writing that check away.
And my grandmother was like, what's wrong? It's my money. So it's what it, oh my God. But I'm just wondering, like, that's a big fear of mine. I'm just like, oh my God, really? Like, in certain circumstances, I'm just like, yeah, sure. Like, yeah. Like, the certain woman, like, the certain location and all that stuff, fine. But right now, it's just like, I don't know. I kind of feel like everyone's just working the same job, or not the same job, but they're doing the same thing. And these jobs that we're working now, we're gonna easily be replaced sooner or later.
Here's the thing, you know, sometimes that maybe that dream that you had could have been a wake up call. Like, hey, you know, you got a lot of talent, so you know, you might want to get going and you know, and build something that's unique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that could have been a good interpretation of the dream. That's true. I look at it, and like America is just becoming this place where, because I look at the housing collapse, and I'm like, a lot of this is because people bought houses that they couldn't afford, or all of them wanted a dream. They wanted the idea of owning a home and all the other stuff when, like, they took out a gigantic loan to pay it off, and they couldn't pay it off.
Part of the problem is that there's a few things that led to that problem right there. First of all, you probably didn't do your research. You know, you didn't really, you know, examine every nook and cranny, you know, that you either didn't read the contract clearly, you didn't have a clear plan, you didn't follow through clearly on your plan, you weren't prepared for unseen events. You know, that's what, you know the saying, you know, stars save your money for a rainy day. That's what that means. Yeah. And right now in America, it's raining a whole lot.
Yep, it is. Anything else to go with this topic, Jesse?
Financial management. Once again, important to know how to manage your money, people.
Definitely. Another topic we have on the day is, why do we feel the need to glorify people? Like, it just seems like every movie is just a glorification of someone, or every president needs to be glorified in such ways that keep... Like, we all know it's a lie. We all know that person is not perfect. Like, even a supermodel that we meet. Like, we see the supermodel and she's just gorgeous. But we all know she has her faults. So, why don't we ever acknowledge that people aren't perfect when we look at our heroes?
Because... Well, one reason is that people are working on their imperfections, or in other words, their weaknesses, to develop them into strengths. The other thing is people don't always, like, you know, people become unrealistic when they're trying to address things and they're not doing it in the proper manner. And the third thing is, you know, as you know, what are you looking at? Like, you know, what your sources are. Who do you know that doesn't have their problems? You know, who is perfect? Nobody. First of all, nobody's perfect. We all have our faults, but you can either be held back by them, or you can work on them and hopefully work through them to strengthen and empower yourself.
Yeah. I remember a few years ago, I went to a missionary conference. It was a good conference. And I met somebody, and he was just really he was tired, and he's like, "Hey, can you pray with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. What do you need prayer for?" And he starts saying things like, "Well, I'm just not sure about myself," and I was like, "Well, what's wrong?" He's like, "Well, I have these sexual urges, and my preacher says that I shouldn't have them anymore, and that and this is wrong." And I was like, "What are these urges about?" And he's like, "Homosexual urges." And then I finally said to the guy, "You ever just think that you're gay?" And he was like, "Yeah, but they say a real man and like my heroes are not gay and and I did, hey, hold on." I was like, "Are you having these urges?" And he's like, "Yes." "Have you had them consistently throughout your life?" And he's like, "Yes." I'm like, I don't think, like, do you know how many, I say to the guy, do you know how many things that God sees in the world, how many atrocities? There's somebody starving right now in the world, and you're complaining about that? Like, you're worried about that? I don't think God's gonna go crazy if you're gay, my friend. There's nothing wrong with that. And he's like, "You're the first person to ever tell me that." And I was like, "Yeah, like you can't." That's one example of just people who are just. I'm just like, you're not perfect. We're never gonna be perfect. Like, the idea of perfect is not there. Just be who you are. Do the things that make you happy. And I didn't hear from the guy for a long time, but I got a letter from him the other day, and he's happy. He's, what do you call it? He's finally he's living his own life. He finally admitted it to himself. He admitted it to his parents, and his parents like, "Oh, we knew." But what do you call it? It was just amazing to me when I look at things and I say, why can't people just be themselves or admit that they're not perfect?
Part of the reason is some people probably hold themselves to unrealistic, goals. Like to have the Barbie doll features and this and that. It's like, look, no matter how hard you try, you're not going to be perfect. I mean, that doesn't make excuses for not trying to be the best you can. But it just means that just know that you're always going to have room for something to work on.
I'd like to talk briefly about a hero of mine, Patrice O'Neal. Patrice O'Neal, comedian. He did the roast of Charlie Sheen. That's what he's well known for. But I've been listening to him on Opie and Anthony and a bunch of other stand-up events for a long time. Well, not for a long time, but for over a year, just about. But this guy has saved my life because I remember a year ago I was just really sad and I just didn't know what to do and all that stuff. So all of a sudden I just listened to a stand-up and I'm just like, this guy's really telling it like it is. And it's amazing to me because stand-up comedians do that, but this guy said it even more. But the thing that amazed me about this guy even more, he's not perfect at all. Big black guy, 6'3", diabetes, like joked, politically incorrect all the time. And just says the wrong things, but they're the right things. But he's very smart. And he died. He died last week, I think. And I'm really sorry that he died. But this guy saved my life because he just talked about things that were real. They were academic almost. He brought up things like psychology and semantics and all that stuff. So one thing he said was he doesn't want to owe in his career. He didn't want to owe that much. Like, he didn't want to do something, like, let's say me and you, Jesse, let's say you become some successful businessman, and you tell your friends, hey, check out the Weekly Scholar with Johnny Jones. And all of a sudden I get tons of radio deals, like everybody knows my name. I owe you my career. I can't say no to you after that. I can't say, you run for president. I can't say, no, we shouldn't vote for this man, because he started my career. It just doesn't look good.
Well, it doesn't mean that you're in debt to anybody. It just means that you got the start that you needed.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and sometimes that's all you need. But there is a line between, like, just helping somebody out and the loyalty factor. Like, just how loyal are you gonna be? Like when, if a friend calls you up 40 years from now who helped you out, like, are you still gonna be like that loyal? But I don't know. I kind of I look at my career and, like, my future goals. Like, yeah, I want to accomplish a bunch of things, but I don't want to owe that much. I don't want to owe so much to the point where I just gave up everything about me to the point where, like, to become this person, this successful person, to the point where I won't recognize myself 25 years from now.
Oh, that's cool then. It doesn't mean that you owe people. It just means that you never forget where you come from. Like, this is where you got your start.
Yeah, definitely. And you gotta. No, I look at a lot of people who are in the work world and what they're doing, and it's just like some of the things. I remember asking somebody, well, if you were working in an electric company and you had to turn off the power at a house, and somebody comes out screaming, no, don't do that. My mom is in there and she's attached to a respirator, and if you cut it off, she'll die. And it depended on your job. What do you call it? And the company is like, well, we have no record of that, so do it. And you can clearly see the lady's on a respirator. Would you turn it off?
No.
Yeah, you would.
No.
I wouldn't. I'd rather be homeless than do that. The lady said, yeah. The lady said, that's not my responsibility. Like, I need to make money. I need to keep on living for myself. It's not my responsibility. I have to do my job. And then
so you cut it off?
Yeah, she would cut it off. She said she would cut it off. And I was like, would you have any remorse about that afterwards? She was like, no. And I was just amazed by some people that are like that. I was like, because I know there are more people like that in, like, different careers.
So yeah, they would cut it off on a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm. Especially if it meant like a Christmas bonus or something like that. They would cut it off. At
her expense, huh?
Like, there are people who are willing to do that,
Christmas
a little
bonus,
less than that, or above. Like, some people would go above that for the paycheck, and that's what I mean about not owing that much. I do owe people a lot. Like, I do owe certain people a lot of things in my life, and that I'm very thankful for. I've had a lot of great memories, but I just don't want to be that person to the point where I owe that much, to the point where I'm willing to consider taking the power from a lady's respirator to get a Christmas bonus to pay off something, or to do something, or to keep on living my lavish lifestyle. Then I don't want that.
You see, the thing is, that's sort of related to distorted values. Mm-hmm. That's where you have to evaluate, exactly what do you value the most? What do you like about the thing you value the most? Stuff like, if it came down to two of the most important things in your life, which one would you choose?
Yeah,
and that's the way that you approach a problem like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely understand with that. And I think more people should start asking that question, like, what are your values? What do you want out of life? And just like, is money really that important to you? Money's important. It's definitely important. I'm not gonna tell people not to get warmed up in a nice bed and stuff like that, because there are people in the street who are cold right now, just sleeping, because that's what they have to do on park benches. But what I'm not gonna do is I'm not gonna say that you should always justify yourself using that reason. Like I like humans have, and I think one thing that we should examine is that, you know, what one person can justify, the other person can justify for that too. So we gotta really look at what our values are when it comes to money and these issues. Because even now, the healthcare debate. How come we're the richest country in the world and we don't have healthcare?
Once again, that goes to show you, you know, where are our values as a country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Obama tried to get the healthcare bill passed, but what happened? It got canceled. It got cut. People wasn't going for it.
And the biggest thing is, why aren't people going crazy? If Canada has it, and a bunch of other Europeans have it, and they don't make...
Why isn't college free in the United States?
Yeah.
I mean, in Cuba they have free education.
Yeah, but some people say, well, the quality and all that. Have you seen the quality of things in America? Majority of our bridges should have been demolished and just rebuilt by now. Like the levees, for completely horrible. Like, if you want to talk about quality, like you need to go to some certain places in Europe. Like what do you call it? Like you don't look for quality in the United States. You look for things in bulk here.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You know, the perfect example for this is Hurricane Katrina. You know, how when it first took place, you know, nobody expected it. But, well, actually, people did expect it, but there was no guard against it because people didn't know. Because people in office, people in power, you know, people of authority didn't implement the right reaction to it. And as a result, Hurricane Katrina basically wiped out a lot of property, and people had to start over again.
And I look at Hurricane Katrina, and I'm just like, you guys couldn't do this earlier? Like, you guys couldn't look at it and say, I don't think that's gonna work. We need to start building this thing up, or like fixing it.
And the other part of that problem is that sometimes people try to tell, you know, there are those situations where people try to tell you, hey, yo, they're raising a red flag, and people will be, and you would have somebody raising or waving a flag trying to say, hey, you know, there's a problem here, and that voice just gets stomped out, and then years later, boom, something happens, and you go back and you say, you know, we should have listened to that guy. You know, he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah. Years later, that's why certain people in high positions get fired, because they say, like, you could give an institution over 50 years of your life, and because you failed to act, you can be fired for that. And I think more people in the work world and just every day should think about that more, and just say, okay, for my career, do I really want to look at this 30 years from now and say, I failed to act on this? Like, because that mentality is looked down in the United States of America. Like, we're more of a country where you have to play ball, or we sidetrack things so much with paperwork and just all that stuff, or we try to prevent it as much as possible. Like, or even if they know that something's wrong, people will, because of their ideology, people will ignore it. Like, you can be talking to your blue in the face, but it is just done. Right, what are your thoughts?
Sometimes, you know, and people are trying to tell you the truth and you don't believe it, eventually they stop speaking, and they let whatever happen, and whatever happens has to happen. Sometimes there's a saying that goes, a hard head makes a soft butt. That means basically people are trying to head you off. People are trying to tell you, hey, yo, this is not the road to go down. Or, like, to quote Bill Cosby, because I heard him say this once, like, if I'm trying to tell you that the bridge is out, up ahead, I'm just gonna flat out say it just like that. Hey, there's no bridge here.
Yeah.
And it doesn't get any plainer than that. And if you keep going and you keep driving, you find out there's no bridge there, don't say I didn't tell you.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they don't do that. They complain about it afterwards, or they act like, "Oh, well, I didn't know."
Yes, you did.
Yes, you
did. You knew.
You knew.
Clearly, I told you the bridge was out, but you in a 2,000-pound vehicle decided to drive and go have a look for yourself. When people sometimes are trying to, there are a very small amount of people that are trying to tell you the fastest and most efficient way to get from point A to point B, but people make it more complicated than it has to be at times, and that's just from not listening. I mean, even Tupac said, and I think he was advising kids when he said this. He said, when grown folks talk, young kids should listen, because if you're near a valuable source, you need to have your ear plugged in.
Yeah, but also it matters because a lot of it matters the quality of information you're getting.
That's what I'm saying.
If you just beat somebody who you don't know, who's trying to give you advice, and they don't know you either, it's kind of weird.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's why you have to have valuable sources.
Yep.
And the way you do that is you develop, you research your outlets. You do, like, you examine what you think is worth it, what you think is not worth it, and then, like, if you're not sure, you get somebody in that field that knows what they're doing, and and can advise you, because sources are important, and the wrong ones steer you the wrong way.
Yep, they do. But also, at the end of the day, you have to remember your values and look at it
constantly.
You gotta look at that sometimes and say, you know what, because there have been times when you have certain people in your life where you're just like, man, that was not, you just don't feel right after listening to them. Like, you're like, well, this person knows what they're talking about, but I'm not. It's like when you get an advisor telling you, oh, why would you major in that? Like, there's no money in that, but you have a passion for it. Like, that's the one thing I'd say, like, if I did have kids. If my kid came up to me and said, Dad, I want to be an artist. I want to go to art school. Like, are you passionate about it? Are you going to stick to it? How much do I have to pay? And if he's passionate about it, and if he really thinks he could do it and he wants to do it, yeah, go ahead. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. At least
you tried.
Like, nah, you can't do that.
nowadays I look at, and I'm gonna use parents and kids as an example. Nowadays, you got the parents trying to be trying to be the kid's best friend. That's not supposed to happen. Your job is to guide them, not to be their best friend, not to be, this person where they see you as a friend. No, that's not supposed to happen.
Well, that's very different. Like, not as a friend, but I've seen a lot of good parents who they really talk to their kids.
That's part of guiding them. That's part of being a parent.
They don't just punish them. They don't come out of nowhere. It's like
everything's done with a reason.
Yeah, it's done for a reason, but it's just like, okay. But I'm talking more. I'm kind of talking like, all right, like if you watch the Maury Show or something like that, and like you have like these underage youth that are just messing up or not doing well. What usually happens with those shows?
They have some sort of redemption, and it seems like everything is okay with the world.
Oh my God.
It's true. You know that show is a rerun. By the time it's on your television, it's a rerun. And I'm sure you can click the information remote or the information button on your remote to see on the cable, and you see the air date is like 9/7/2005.
Yeah.
And then like they bring the kid back like 5 years later, and they're all grown up.
Yeah. But I look at it and I'm like, that doesn't always work. Like, you can't, like, my uncle, he works in Buffalo. He works with underage youth, just like that and worse. Parents have just given up on them, or they have some type of mental disability, and the parents refuse to visit them. They just want to leave them there. Or they like young women that cut themselves and all those other things. And like the first, or they act out. And the first thing most people in America think is, oh, we need a drill sergeant. They need to go to boot camp, and you need to yell at them and all that stuff. And I asked my uncle, does that work all the time? And he's like, no, I don't do that. I play basketball with them. I talk to them. I get a repertoire with them before I give them any advice or anything like that. And I'm there. And he's like, sometimes I'm the only one who's there because their parents won't visit them. And he's just like, what do you call it? He buys them Christmas presents.
Dude, any parent that gives up on their kid is not a parent. I'm sorry to say that. Let's just get that out the way right now. I can't respect it if you're giving up on your kid. Nah.
And that's where a lot of young black youths, like, they see older black men, and it's just like, who are you? Because majority of them are raised by their moms. So when they see an older black male, it's just like, you're really careful to trust them, because you automatically don't trust them at all.
The thing is, that goes back to this attitude where some people have that I can raise a child by myself. No, you can't. No, you can't. I'm sorry. Like, whoever put that into your brain, I'm sorry. You need to reject that right away.
You need guidance.
You need guidance, and it takes two.
Yep.
It took two to make you, and it's going to take two to raise you. At least two to raise you, because it takes a whole community to raise a child.
Yeah. And the community you have around you, good people, all that stuff, it matters.
Keep them around.
Yeah,
keep them around. I mean, like, there used to be days where, if you did something wrong, your grandmother, your mother, your friend, your neighbor knew about it before you got to your block. And you knew once you got there, it's like, oh boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They already know.
Yeah. I remember an older African American gentleman, and he's just telling me a bunch of things. I don't know him. Like, it's just like, I don't know who you are. I don't know your background or anything like that, but he's trying to give me advice. And I say to him, yeah, that's great. If I knew you, I'd really listen to you. I mean, I'm listening to you. I'll consider what you say, but I can't really, like, just go off of what you say because I don't have a repertoire with you. So, and that's how I am with everyone, though. It's not just, what do you call it? But I think older black men, if they want to reach out to younger black men, you have to have a repertoire with them, but they need consistency. If you show them consistency, then they're great. They will look up to you, they'll listen to you, and all that stuff. If you say a bunch of great things one day and then you don't hear from them for like months at a time, or it's you're inconsistent all the time, then they're not going to listen to you. Of course they're going to be gangbanging and doing other things like that because they don't have a consistent male voice that's steering them in the right direction. And it's not just like, you don't have to see them every day, but you have to be like, when they reach out, you reach out too, you know.
True. Yeah, but on the other hand, you know, there's some you know, some African American males without a father figure who turn out to be great men.
Yeah, I know.
And it's like, and that's not to take anything away from the father that's doing everything that they're supposed to be doing, and that's doing it, you know, proficiently. That's doing it like it's supposed to be done, but a lot of times what happens is that they don't get the credit that they deserve. Like, you know, like if you're doing the right thing by your kid, you're steering them in the right direction, you're guiding them, you're doing everything that you possibly can to make that child the best that he or she can be, then I think you ought to be rewarded. You know, you ought to at least get a pat on the back saying, you know, I love how your daughter turned out to be. She turned out to be a young, intelligent, beautiful young lady. Or I like the way that your son carries himself. I like the way that he represents himself. Like, you know, he speaks very well. He does this, he does that. You know, that ought to be coming into the household. And the thing is, you also must recognize your kids.
I mean, I got one of my friends lives in Michigan, and his dad was always disappointed in him because his dad has two sons. So there's two sons. One is his brother. His brother goes to college, does well for himself. Works a good job and all that stuff. My friend doesn't want to go to college. He just doesn't want to. He just doesn't like it. But he ends up going. He gets his associates and then he leaves. That's all he That's all he wanted, was just his associates. So what he does is he starts out building houses for a living. And they paid him good money and he was happy doing that. But his dad would always rag on him. Just like, why can't you be more like your brother and all these other things? And that really made him sad for a long time. And I told him, bro, if you're happy, just do what you want to do. Like, if this is what your passion is, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to build these houses and repair them.
Yeah, you know.
And guess who makes more money?
The house builder.
Yeah, because he has his own business. He builds houses for a living and repairs them, gets rid of mold, everything. This guy is making bank. And this guy is making so much money. The banks love him whenever he goes to the bank. Like,
exactly, yes. The banks love him, so he ain't got to worry about what his father says.
But his father, he just makes him eat his words every time he goes home for the holidays. It's just like, oh, don't worry, I got that. Like, Dad, I got you a new car. Didn't you get me one last year? Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I guess, you know, I guess his father's like, you know what, maybe, shouldn't have been ragging on him.
Yeah. How we measure success nowadays, man. Like, you can be successful. You can always be successful in different ways. Like, it's not just the way we see it portrayed in the media. All right, we're about to leave, but final thoughts, and we'll call this show. We'll call it a great show, I think.
Well, first of all, you got to know what you're worth. You know, once you figure that out, then the sky's the limit.
That sounds good. I like to quote Chris Carter, famous wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings and Miami Dolphins. So yesterday he was talking about a subject, but he said there's the two M's in life. There's your money and your memories, and you got to get as much as both as possible. And I was like, this guy's right. And he's like, you have to. You don't just need to you need to get as much money and as much memories as possible. You can't just have a lot of money and no memories. You can't just have memories and no money. I don't see those being a lot of good memories. But for people out there, try to go get both. Invest in yourself. because it's very true. Right now, you are, what do you call it? Like, imagine your name and then ink. Like, you're your own company. Invest in yourself. Keep investing in yourselves. Go to college. Do the things you want to do with your life. And have, what do you call it? Just have a vision for yourself. Even if no one else can see it, nobody else believes in it. Just do it, folks. All right, this has been the WHLC Weekly Scholar. We're glad to have you, and keep on tuning in. Don't forget about the 2 M's.